Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made this crochet top, and I think it's perfect for the beach, very summery and light. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I started off by making a slip knot and inserting my 6mm crochet hook, and I began crocheting a chain that was 27 inches long, and that was essentially the measurement around my bust, but I didn't go all the way around. I just did about 3/4 around my bust because it's kind of an open back top. But honestly, you can do whatever kind of size you want it to fit around you. If you want it like a full open back, then just measure around like shoulder to shoulder. And I recommend using a measuring tape, but you can also just measure the chain around your bust size. But yeah, just whatever size you kind of want. So once the chain was 27 inches long, as I said before, I then just chained one and I began double crocheting into every stitch along the chain. And if you don't know how to double crochet, you just wrap your yarn around the hook, insert your hook into the stitch, and then pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, and then pull through the second 2 loops on the hook. And I essentially just did double crochets into every stitch for every row until it reached the size of 7 inches. So the length was 7 inches. And that's just kind of the size that I wanted of kind of the length of my bust. And remembering to chain one every time you reach the end of your row and then turning your work. If you don't already know how to do that. And yeah. So once the top part measured 7 inches, I then cut the yarn and pulled a knot. This is completely optional, but I then just did a border of a white yarn, so just single crochet border into every stitch. Of the white yarn. It's completely optional. I just decided to do this. And if you don't know how to do a single crochet stitch already, you basically just insert your hook into the stitch and bring through the 2 loops that should be on your hook. So once I'd done the border, I then began on the Solomon's knot part of the bottom, which is quite difficult to grasp at the start. So basically I just made a slip knot and I got a 4mm hook, and I basically inserted the hook into the first stitch of the corner, and then I just did a single crochet stitch, as you can see. Then I pulled up a loop, as you can see, like so. So I pulled up a loop like this, then I yarned over, then inserted my hook into the leftmost part of the chain, then yarned over, then pulled up 2 loops, and then yarned over and pulled through those 2 loops. Then I did it again, so I pulled a loop up, then I inserted my hook into the most left part of the chain loop part, then I yarned over and then pulled up 2 loops, then I yarned over and pulled through those 2 loops. Then I skipped 3 stitches, so I went into the 4th stitch and I did a single crochet stitch into that 4th stitch, like so. And then I again did 2 Solomon knots, so I pulled up a loop, inserted my hook into the leftmost part, yarned over, and then pulled up 2 loops, and then pulled those 2 loops through. So again, pulling a loose loop, and then inserting my hook into the leftmost part, and then yarning over, pulling up 2 loops, and then pulling those 2 loops, like so. So I did 2 Solomon knots, and then I again skipped 3 stitches, and then going into the 4th stitch and doing a single crochet. And then I again did 2 Solomon knots, and make sure when you're pulling the loop you make them all the same size, otherwise it'll just be all lopsided and it won't really look that good. But yeah, so I recommend like using your thumb or something to measure kind of the size of the loop that you're pulling up. But yeah, so again I did 2 Solomon knots, and then I skipped 3 stitches again and went into the 4th stitch and did a single crochet stitch again. It got a little bit messed up here, as you can see, because I accidentally inserted my hook into the 2 Solomon knots, but I got it eventually. And then again I did 2 other Solomon knots, so pulling up my loop and then inserting my hook into the leftmost part of the chain. I can then pull yarn over and then pull up 2 loops, and then yarning over and pulling those 2 loops up basically. And yeah, so 2 of them, then again skipping 3 stitches and going into the 4th stitch and doing a single crochet. And this is quite a hard, in my opinion, quite a difficult stitch to learn, but once you know how to do it, it's actually quite enjoyable and pretty easy. So yeah, I think the secret that I found the easiest is just to, as if you're doing a chain, but like pull the loop and then do kind of single crochet into the left part of the back, kind of like the back loop of it, I would say, like the back loop of a chain stitch. I'm doing a single crochet into that basically. I find that the easiest. So yeah, you're just basically doing that the whole way along the row, so from one corner to the other corner, doing 2 Solomon knots and then skipping 3 stitches and then single crocheting into the 4th stitch and then doing 2 Solomon knots, and then again just repeating it, skipping 3 stitches and then single crocheting into the 4th stitch, and just do that the whole way along the row. Also, a tip, I recommend holding on to the leftmost part of the loop that you single crochet into, just because it helps a lot in my opinion, and just kind of makes it a little bit easier to kind of do the single crochet into and don't get it messed up with the rest of the part that you're not single crocheting into. So when you get to the other side of the row, so you're going to do your last 2 Solomon knots and then single crochet into the last stitch of the row, so the corner stitch. And that should be you finished that row once you've done the last single crochet. And then to start a new row, you're going to do 4 chain 4, sorry. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 chains, and then you're going to do 1 Solomon's knot. So again, pulling the loop and then yarn over and then inserting your hook into the left side of the loop, and then yarn over, pull up 2 loops and then pull through the 2 loops to get your Solomon's knot, and then obviously turn your work, and then you're going to insert your hook into the top peak single crochet. So there should be a single crochet in like the top peak, if you get what I mean, and you're going to insert your hook into the single crochet. And then you're going to single crochet into that stitch, and then you're going to do 2 Solomon's knots again. So 1 and 2. And then you're going to insert your hook into the next top peak single crochet stitch, like so. And then you're going to do single crochet into that stitch. And then you're going to again do 2 Solomon's knots. So 1 and 2. And then again, inserting your hook into the next top peak single crochet. And if you're struggling to find the top peak, it's basically the second single crochet you made in the previous row, because in total you're doing 3 single crochets for kind of every stitch you do, because you're doing 1 single crochet into the stitch and then you're doing another single crochet for the first Solomon's knots, and then so that's the stitch you're going into, and then you'll do another single crochet for the second Solomon knot, but you're inserting your hook into the second single crochet that you made. So again, after you've inserted your hook into the top peak single crochet, then you do a single crochet into that stitch, and then do 2 Solomon's knots, and then you single crochet into the next top peak. And you're basically going to do it the whole way along the row, so inserting your hook into the top peak, as you can see I'm doing right now, and then single crocheting into that stitch, and then doing 2 Solomon knots, and then just inserting your hook into the next top peak and single crocheting, and just kind of repeating that process the whole way along the row. So once you get to the end of the row, for this row it should be exactly the same, so just inserting it into that middle single crochet like so, inserting your hook and then doing a single crochet, and then this time to turn your work you're going to again chain 4 like so, and then you're going to do 1 Solomon's knot, then you're going to turn your work and again repeat the exact same process, so inserting your hook into the first top peak, and for some reason this one was a little bit more difficult, but I got it eventually, and then I did a single crochet stitch again like before, and then I did 2 Solomon knots, so 1 and 2, and then insert your hook into the next top peak along the row like so, so that single crochet, and then you're again going to doing a single crochet into that stitch, and then again 2 Solomon knots, so it's basically exactly the same as the row before, and it will be exactly the same in the next row, so you're basically just repeating the exact same process the whole way along, of kind of doing 2 Solomon's knots like so, and then inserting your hook into the next top peak, and then single crocheting into that top peak like as you can see right now, and then again doing 2 more Solomon knots, and then again single crocheting into the next top peak, and you just do that for the whole row. So when you get to the other side of this row, you're going to insert your hook into the top stitch of the chain 4 that you did before the last time you turned your work, and you're going to single crochet into that stitch, and then again you're going to chain 4, because every time you turn your work now you chain 4 and then do 1 Solomon's knot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 Solomon knot, like so, and then turn your work. And again, it's exactly like the row before, so inserting your hook into the first top peak and single crocheting into that stitch. And then again, 2 more Solomon knots. So 1 and 2. And then again, just single crocheting into the next top peak, and you're basically just going to again repeat the pattern for this whole entire row, just like before. And you're going to actually do this for every single row, so doing 2 Solomon knots and then single crocheting into the next top peak and doing 2 Solomon knots and then again single crocheting into the next top peak, and so on. And sometimes, as you can see, it's quite hard to get your hook in to the top peak sometimes, but you just have to kind of push it. And yeah, so as you can see, I had to continue to do that for every single row, just the normal 2 Solomon knots and then single crocheting into each top peak, and remembering every time you need to turn your work to chain 4 and then do 1 Solomon knot and then turning your work, and at the end of each row inserting your hook into the top chain of the chain 4 and then single crocheting into that stitch. And yeah, I just continued to do that for every row until it was 5 inches long. So the bottom part, the Solomon stitch bottom part, was 5 inches long. And of course that's just the size I wanted to cover my stomach. I just measured how long my the bottom of my bust part to my waist, and it was 5 inches because I have quite a small torso, but obviously whatever size you want. So again, to finish it off, you're just obviously just doing exactly the same of doing 2 Solomon knots and then single crocheting into the top stitch of the chain 4 that you did every time you turn your work, before you turn your work, sorry, and like so, and then single crocheting, and then obviously cutting your yarn and pulling a knot through. And then I just began by making a slip knot and then starting a chain, and this chain is for the straps kind of at the back, like not the arm straps but the straps like that you sew through to hold it together at the back. So I made my chain, I think it was about like 100 inches, which I know sounds really long, but it is like, it does have to be quite long because you are crisscrossing it. It's kind of like if you have a lace for a shoe, but obviously it's like 10 times the size of a shoe because it's fitting around your body. But that was just the size I used. I made mine probably on the longer side, just so it would kind of adjust and I could make it like bigger or smaller for different sizes. so once I finished, I obviously tied a knot and cut the yarn, and then yeah, here's me just measuring it, and then I folded my work like so. Then you're going to fold the chain that you just made in half, and then insert your hook into the top 2 corners of each side, and then you're going to pull through that chain, just pulling through the middle part, because if you fold it in half like so, and then just pulled one side all the way through so that it was kind of equal lengths coming out on both sides. And then I just kind of began by just doing it kind of crisscross all the way down, so I'm inserting it into kind of further down the back, and then just pulling it through, making sure it's equal lengths on both sides of the chain, and then yeah, just kind of crisscrossing it like so, kind of like as if you're doing the shoelace, like the same kind of thing, like so, and just pulling it through, just kind of like threading it through like a crisscross. And I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't take any measurements, so I just kind of pulled it through where I kind of thought would be right. And I pulled through the chain just about halfway down the mesh part. I didn't do all of it, and then I just tied a bow at the bottom like so. And then on the back I measured 2.5 inches from each side, each corner, and then I just inserted a stitch marker, and you can use a bobby pin if you don't have one. I then turned my work onto the front part, and then I measured 10 inches for like the collar bit, and the whole front of it was 15 inches, so I then put a stitch marker again 2.5 inches from each corner, and then that should have left like from the length from one stitch marker to the other there should be 10 inches, and then that 10 inches I then fit my arm into it, and then I just made a slip knot into the crochet hook, and then I just inserted my hook into that stitch where the front stitch marker was, like so. And then I made a single crochet into that stitch, and then I just began making a chain that was long enough to be a strap. So I think my strap was about 14 inches long, so I just made a chain that was 14 inches long. So once the chain was 14 inches long, I then inserted my hook into the stitch marker stitch that was at the back, and then I just did a single crochet into that stitch. Then I cut the yarn and tied a knot like so. And that was a strap done for one side, and then I just did the exact same for the other side for the other strap. So just making a single crochet into this first front stitch with the stitch marker, and then making a chain that was 14 inches, and then single crocheting into the back that had a stitch marker, so into that stitch that has a stitch marker in it in the back. So single crocheting and then cutting the yarn and tying a knot. So yeah. And that was it finished, the final look. And thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you decide to make something similar for yourself. And I know I will be wearing my top a lot because I think it's very nice and perfect for summer. And yeah, thank you so much again.